Recently, we've had some influencers get into trouble by creating branded content and using music they were not allowed to use. Let's talk to everybody's favorite IP and entertainment lawyer, Tony, to find out more.
My name is Tony Iliakostas. I'm an adjunct professor of entertainment law and IP at New York Law School, and have an Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok account called The IP Professor that is dedicated to all things intellectual property.
We've had some interesting developments in the influencer space recently where influencers were creating content and turned in their deliverables using songs that they didn't license properly, which then got the brand into trouble as well. And Sony has had to step in. Tony, what's happened?
Yeah, so if you have not caught this headline, this is a really interesting story, probably as interesting, if not probably on the same continuum as what happened last year with Bang Energy Drink also being sued by music publishers. The whole essence of this lawsuit, Sony Music has gone after Ofra Cosmetics, this cosmetic company, for basically using commercial songs that belong to Sony in videos that were uploaded on TikTok promoting Ofra Cosmetic products. And obviously a lot of the videos were of influencers themselves showcasing the products that they got, the blushes, lip liner, lipstick, whatever it is that Ofra Cosmetics manufactures. And obviously, this is very much the headline that we see with a lot of brands, which is that they get sued for copyright infringement for using commercial songs in TikTok videos of this nature. Now, for a lot of people that are wondering why would Sony go after a cosmetic brand, especially with music being available on TikTok, this is where you have to be mindful of the distinction between a personal TikTok account and a brand TikTok account. So personal accounts, like what I have, like what KM has, or anybody else out there has, you have access to the wide music library that is out there for every genre. And that's because TikTok's music department has been able to engage in license agreements with Sony, with Universal, with Cobalt, with all the other music publishers and the record labels, Atlantic, Sony Music Records, Universal, all of them, to be able to make these commercial songs available to everyday personal TikTok users. But the caveat is that these licenses for these major songs are for personal use only. That's when then we get into what the brand TikTok page looks like. Brand TikTok accounts do not have the same access to commercial music at all. They have more or less royalty-free music, but if a brand does want to use commercial music, that's where the brand individually would have to go to the record label and the music publisher directly to get the necessary licenses to use the underlying musical composition and the sound recording in the context of a TikTok video promoting a product line, promoting an individual product, whatever it is. So in theory, when an influencer does work with a brand, that influencer themselves may have access to the music library that Ofra doesn't have in this case. Right. And that's where we get into this really complex web of what to do in what scenario. So I wanted to actually take a moment to provide kind of some tips on, if you're an influencer, what you should do, kind of like your checklist to ensure that you're playing safe here. Because let's put it in perspective. Sony right now is going after Ofra, but what's not to say that Ofra is looking at their influencer agreement deals with all their influencers that they work with to see if they need to be joined into the lawsuit. Realistically, I don't think that would happen, but it's something that has to be considered and has to, all options are really on the table here. So first things first, before you work with any brand, you want to make sure that you understand the terms of the agreement. And that involves going to a lawyer. I am telling you right now, a lot of influencers do not have the same legal knowledge as someone who is skilled at looking at contracts. And I'm not saying that to diminish your individual intelligence if you're watching this, but it's a reality. Legalese is not the same as other speak in the world. Contract language has a lot of nuances, has a lot of provisions, that a lot of carve-outs, and a lot of trigger events that to the average eye you may not catch. But if you are legally trained, if you've gone through the whole step of going through law school, if you've worked in the legal industry for years upon years, you will have enough knowledge to know that specific verbiage or specific wording in a contract can trigger certain things. Mm-hmm. So go to your lawyer the minute you get any brand deal, a contract, so that they can vet the terms. And that kind of gets then into the second point that I want to make, which is don't agree to the terms blindly for the sake of getting a quick payday. Your lawyer will have to look through it to make sure that you are legally protected, understanding what you're agreeing to. If, let's say, you're providing a deliverable to the brand, are you conveying copyright ownership of the video, or are you keeping the copyright? What are the payment distribution terms? Is it going to be a net 30-day payment? Is it going to be net 60? All of that would be spelled out. But the one clause that you would have to pay attention to is the indemnification clause. And indemnification clauses are specific clauses that essentially say that if a brand were sued by another party for any breach of a claim, like let's say a copyright infringement claim, the influencer would be then responsible for assuming all legal liability on behalf of the brand. Usually indemnification clauses are very unilateral in that way, where the little guy is disadvantaged and the brand is protected and suffers no liability whatsoever. Make sure that you do not blindly agree to an indemnification clause that adversely affects you, the influencer. That is what you want to avoid at all costs. And sadly, I have no doubt that with a lot of the influencer agreements with between Opera and influencers, I am sure that a lot of them blindly agreed to an indemnification clause that adversely affects them, and now they're in panic mode. Now, again, like I said, realistically, the deeper pockets in a scenario like this are automatically going to be Sony, but still, you have to look at the letter of the contract, and technically, the influencer would likely have to indemnify Opera, and those influencers do not have deep pockets. So you just want to play it safe in a scenario like that. But third, and most importantly, this one is the big one. If you've already gone through the length of having your lawyer review the contract, if you already have the indemnification clause covered and protecting you, and it's been revised and you're not going to indemnify the brand, wonderful. You sign the agreement, you get your deal done. But please, 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 please do not use commercial music if you are using it to promote a product. That is not going to work, because you may have access to that commercial library, but the brand does not. And we're not going to talk about remixes either. Remixes are the kind of thing that just simply do not apply here. You could have a remix version of a Taylor Swift song with the reverb and sped up. Okay, wonderful. We love to hear a sped up version of, Shake It Off. Great. We love Shake It Off. But at the end of the day, the reverb pitched up high tempo version of Shake It Off is no different than the normal version of Shake It Off. They are both copyrights. You need to understand that you have to not use any remixes. Stick to royalty-free music. Find something that sounds similar to the song that you want to use. And at the end of the day, you're covered. The royalty-free song is going to absolve you of any copyright liability. You're not going to get in trouble for using it. And at the end of the day, the brand's going to thank you, because now you've put them out of misery of having to deal with a copyright infringement lawsuit in the future. So your best bet is to just avoid using commercial music if you are working with a brand. Now, for your own individual videos, if you do use commercial music, it's all good. It's fine. You're allowed to do that. But it becomes a totally different conversation when you're talking about using commercial music to help promote a product or a service. That's when it becomes advertising immediately, and that's when it becomes problematic in the eyes of the copyright space, and obviously in the eyes of music publishers and record labels around the country.
And if you are an influencer who wants to use music in your content for a brand, you do need to make sure that you go into each individual app's commercial music section. They all have them. They all have music that you can access and use for free for commercial purposes. Or you can go to different providers where you can subscribe and download music that you can use royalty-free as part of your subscription. We have videos on how to do all of this inside of the individual apps, and different companies that we highly recommend you work with, like Epidemic Sound, where you can be a subscriber, a paying member, and then use as much of their music as you want in your paid commercial content without having any other ramifications. So make sure you check out those videos. They're in the playlist we will link down below. And as always, if you've got questions of this, now's the time to drop them. Tony's coming back for upcoming episodes, and you can always reach out to Tony on his social media. Tony, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at The IP Professor. And you can check out my entertainment law podcast called End Scene. New episodes drop every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Drop your questions down below to make sure that you are legally protected in the influencer space, and follow along for daily videos helping you navigate the world of your marketing, posting on social media, building your online business, and making this your most profitable year ever. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.